A husband finds his wife's cell phone abandoned in the grass at an intersection, strands of her hair tangled in the earbuds. Sherri Papini, a California mother of two, has vanished during her morning run, setting off a wave of fear and speculation. Her community and soon the entire nation clung to the hope of her safe return home. The story quickly drew attention from the media, an outpouring of support and donations, and a $50,000 reward offered for any information. Volunteers combed through nearby fields and forests, and her husband pleaded tearfully for his wife's safe return. But as attention grew, so did the questions. Authorities and her husband began to discover signs that things were not quite what they seemed. What really happened on that morning run? And who was Sherri Papini? Was she the supermom she was dubbed to be? Was she a woman in danger? Or was she the danger? Welcome back to Crime A to Z, where we detail cases and criminals from their very beginning until well after other reporting ends. Today, we're diving into the case of Sherri Papini. At first glance, the scenario appeared to be a tragic random abduction, but it would turn out to be far, far more. While the case received massive media attention and dominated headlines at the time it occurred, most of the public was only familiar with what happened on the surface, not privy to the shocking twists that took the case to a whole other level. So, sit back, get comfortable, and be sure to stick around for the Z section, since this case brings the off-the-charts drama until the very end. And before we get started, we genuinely appreciated you guys hitting like and subscribe. It helps us bring you more videos, so please take a moment to like and hopefully share if you end up liking how we present this case. Thank you all so much again. Let's go. Sherri Louise Greff was born on June 11, 1982 in Shasta County, California, to parents Richard and Loretta Greff. She was raised in a relatively small, close-knit community alongside her sister Sheila, who was 22 months older. Their upbringing was challenging, marked by drug and alcohol abuse in the home and a significant amount of childhood trauma, according to Sheila. Despite these difficulties, Sherri's outgoing, energetic, and charismatic personality helped her maintain a vibrant social life during her youth. She attended Central Valley High School in Shasta County, but dropped out at the age of 16 and ran away from home, further straining her already turbulent relationship with her parents. Police records from her younger years recorded past conflicts with her family and allegations of manipulative behavior, including giving false accounts to authorities. In her 20s, Sherri experienced a brief and unconventional marriage to Platoon Sergeant David Dreyfus in 2006. According to Sherri, the marriage was one of convenience. She claimed that her military husband would earn more money if he were married, and that she needed his medical benefits to cover heart surgery she needed. In 2006, Sherri met Keith Papini, a kind-hearted man who worked as an electronics salesman at Best Buy. Keith was known for his reliability and dedication to his family. He was calm and soft-spoken, a sharp contrast to Sherri's more bubbly, outgoing personality. When they met, Sherri told Keith that she was planning to end her marriage of convenience, and indeed, by 2007, the couple had divorced. Sherri and Keith would go on to marry in 2009 and settle into their new life in Redding, California. 3 years into their marriage, Sherri and Keith welcomed their first child, Tyler, in 2012, followed by their daughter, Violet, in 2014. Their growing family marked the beginning of what seemed to be a stable and loving family life. Friends and family described Sherri as a supermom who took pride in her family and home life. Keith balanced his demanding job with his responsibilities at home, frequently described as a loving and attentive father. From the outside looking in, the Papinis seemed to have it all. Then, on a seemingly ordinary day, 34-year-old Sherri was going about her usual routine as a stay-at-home mom. That morning, she dropped her kids off at daycare before heading out for her daily jog. She often ran the rural areas near her home, part of her commitment to maintaining a healthy lifestyle. When Keith came home from work that evening around 5 p.m., Sherri's car was in the driveway, but the house was empty. Sherri was not there and neither were the kids. Keith assumed she had gone for a run. But after his calls to her cell phone went unanswered, he became concerned. The last communication he had with her was a text she sent at 10:37 a.m., asking him if he'd be able to come home for lunch. 3 hours later, at 1:30, he sent her a reply, but never received a response. He used the Find My iPhone app to track her phone and hopefully, her. The app located her phone, but not her. Her phone and earbuds were found in the grass near their block of mailboxes at an intersection less than a mile from their home. The earbuds were tangled, and there were strands of her hair on the phone, suggesting a struggle. Within an hour of being home, Keith contacted the police.
911, what is your emergency? CHP transferring. Keith is on the line. Hello, can I help you?
Yeah, I just got home from work, and my wife wasn't there, which is unusual, and my kids should have been there by now from, daycare. So I was like, oh, maybe she went on a walk. I couldn't find her, so I called the daycare to see what time she picked up the kids. The kids were never picked up, so I got freaked out, so I hit, the Find My iPhone app thing, and it said that it showed her phone, at our end of our driveway. We don't have really good service.
Okay.
Not the end of our driveway, but the end of our street. So I just drove down there, and I saw her phone with her headphones because she started running again. And I found her phone, and it's got, hair ripped out of it, in the headphones. So I'm, totally freaking out, thinking, somebody, grabbed her.
Okay, what's your address?
Redding.
Okay, what's your last name?
Yes. Papini, Papini.
The call set off a series of events that would soon dominate the headlines. The initial search began with a handful of friends, family, and neighbors searching the rural area near where her phone was found. With the fresh disappearance, authorities wasted no time trying to find the missing woman. And their main area of focus to start was, as usual, the spouse. They brought Keith in for an interview.
The big scheme of things, I'm the voice for Sherri. The big voice for Sherri, the final voice for her. If it was you, I appreciate these conversations, but at the end of the day, I'd hit you over the head of a baseball bat if I need to.
At a certain point, though, do you go, okay,
yes,
it's not, or it never gets that until we find Sherri and find the guy?
No. Or
at a certain point, you go, okay, you're fucking cool. I gotta, go over this route.
Yes, but at no point will I ever tell you that.
Okay.
Police continued the questioning, attempting to gather as much information as they could about Sherri and the couple's relationship.
So there are people who say that they've heard arguments coming from the house. Not saying on a regular basis, just that they've heard actual arguments.
In this moment, I don't want to talk bad about her, but you're kind of... I'm not saying you're forcing me, but I want to tell you everything because I don't want...
We're not talking bad about her.
Yeah.
What we're doing is trying to figure out who she is so I can figure stuff out.
She is physical. She will...
So it's not...
Yeah.
So it's not out of the realm. It's not...
It wouldn't be out of the realm, no. When she gets to that level or mad, she gets loud. Leave me... Stop that!
Recently, things have been fine.
Definitely.
There would be more interviews to come, but with no evidence directly implicating Keith, police and the public turned their full attention to finding Sherri. By the next morning, the effort had expanded dramatically. Law enforcement deployed search dogs and helicopters, while hundreds of volunteers poured into the area determined to leave no stone unturned. Leads were scarce, and the investigation faced mounting pressure. Authorities hoped that Sherri's phone might hold the clues needed to unlock the mystery of her disappearance. Meanwhile, what began as local panic quickly turned into a nationwide story. Media attention surrounding the case heightened fear in the Redding community. The last known sighting of Sherri was reported around 2 p.m. when a witness saw her running in a pink jacket on Sunset Drive. Flyers bearing Sherri's smiling face were plastered across Redding and nearby areas, with local print shops making the signs for free to support the cause. Social media exploded with posts and dedicated pages on platforms like Facebook, quickly spreading her story nationwide and even internationally. The scale of the case's reach was mind-blowing. An anonymous entrepreneur was visiting the area when he saw Keith's emotional plea on television. He pledged $100,000 as a reward for Sherri's safe return, despite having no personal connection to the Papini family. Overwhelmed by the public response, law enforcement received more than 900 tips and worked tirelessly to sift through them. As the story gained traction, volunteers flooded in to help. Over 200 volunteers braved the rugged terrain of Redding's woods, facing potential dangers from bears and wild hogs.
Safety issues, there are bear out here, there are hog out here.
The search quickly grew into one of the largest operations the region had ever witnessed, with resources pouring in from both local and national organizations. As the search intensified, Keith Papini became the face of the effort to bring Sherri home. His heartfelt and emotional appeals to the media captured the nation's attention, painting a picture of a devoted husband desperate to reunite his family. Speaking directly to news outlets and in press conferences, Keith urged anyone with information to come forward, emphasizing the impact of Sherri's disappearance on their children and their close-knit community. Beyond his media appearances, Keith took an active role in organizing campaigns to aid the search. He launched a GoFundMe campaign titled Help Find Sherri Papini, which raised over $49,000 to be used to cover search-related expenses. But not everyone was convinced he was sincere. While many supported Keith's efforts to find his wife, others had suspicions about his involvement. Speculation spread widely on social media and online forums, with critics questioning his authenticity and suggesting he was involved in Sherri's disappearance. And police still weren't convinced of Keith's innocence either. They interviewed the couple's friends and family and got mixed reports. Sherri's best friend shared with police a startling claim that just 5 days before her disappearance, Sherri had told her that Keith threatened her. Sherri told her, "If I ever tried to leave him, he'd kill me." Sherri described to the friend how Keith threatened to chop me up into little pieces and throw me in the backyard. However, the same friend admitted that she had never witnessed Keith exhibit any such behavior. Neighbors also offered conflicting perspectives. Some reported frequent arguments between Sherri and Keith, while others insisted they had never seen nor heard any disputes. Opinions on Keith were divided as well. Some found him creepy, while others found him genuine and kind-hearted. Feedback about Sherri, however, was fairly consistent, with many describing her as dramatic and prone to exaggeration, and occasionally difficult to get along with. Investigators needed more answers. They called Keith back in for more questioning. Despite suspicions from both law enforcement and the public, Keith fully cooperated with authorities. He shared everything he knew and immediately granted them access to anything they needed, including both his and Sherri's phones, his laptops, and any other resources that could help in the efforts to find Sherri. Throughout the entire ordeal, he never lawyered up. Desperate to clear any suspicion and move on with finding his wife, Keith even agreed to take a polygraph test.
Did you participate in any way in causing the disappearance of Sherri?
No.
Do you remember ever intentionally hurting anyone?
No.
While the results of the polygraph were inconclusive, Keith's strong alibi played a significant role in law enforcement publicly clearing him as a suspect. The authorities emphasized that they did not believe he was involved in Sherri's disappearance. Investigators continued conducting interviews and exploring all leads in an attempt to uncover every possible detail about the case. Their investigation would ultimately reveal several key findings regarding the couple and their relationship. Keith shared with investigators that in the past he had caught Sherri texting another man romantically. Concerned about her long-term loyalty and the potential financial impact any future divorce might have, he had Sherri sign a post-nuptial agreement. Given her indiscretion, Sherri eagerly agreed. And from that point on, the couple was legally obligated to keep their finances separate. Given the post-nuptial agreement, the detective asked Keith what Sherri's circumstance would be if she were to leave the marriage. Keith explained that she had worked at AT&T until December of the previous year, when she was let go with a severance package. Afterward, she decided to become a stay-at-home mom. She would use her severance to pay for both utilities and daycare. Keith did not think it was a wise use of money to send the kids to daycare when she was staying at home, but Sherri chose to do so anyway. He also did not agree with spending the money on a boob job, but he supported her since it was what she wanted.
So she pays like the electric bill and the daycare. So I said, I'm not paying for daycare if you're home every day. It makes no sense to me. And then she got a boob job. And I was like, no, keep them the way they are. I think it's a stupid investment, but if it's gonna make you feel good. So I wouldn't say she's very good with money. At some point, I know that's gonna run out.
So if she did decide to leave,
she has nothing.
And she gets nothing.
She doesn't even own the car.
Following up on claims that the couple was frequently overheard arguing, police learned that Sherri was volatile. They asked Keith and he confirmed that Sherri would often get physical when they would argue.
She is physical. She will, when she gets to that level or mad, she gets loud. Leave me, stop that.
Following up on the claims of Keith abusing Sherri, authorities thoroughly investigated and determined there was no evidence to support the claims. Keith also provided a statement recalling the only incident he could think of was a time where he accidentally struck Sherri when they were playing a game on Wii, an incident that resulted in Sherri receiving a black eye. Sherri had told friends that she got the black eye as a result of Keith's abuse. So, investigators contacted the people in attendance that day. They confirmed Keith's account that it was an accident that happened while playing the Wii. Local law enforcement called in the FBI to assist, bringing additional resources and expertise to what had become a massive operation. With their help, detectives examined cell phone records, bank accounts, emails, and social media profiles. Despite the dedication of investigators, volunteers, and the overwhelming media coverage, 5 days into Sherri's disappearance, authorities still had no solid leads. So, as the investigation pressed on, investigators began questioning people with prior connections to similar crimes. One notable lead involved Troy Zink, a suspect in the 1998 disappearance of Tara Smith, another young woman who had vanished just miles away while jogging. But Zink was quickly ruled out, having had an alibi placing him out of state at the time of Sherri's disappearance. 9 days into the search, authorities made the difficult decision to suspend the ground operation. Having had no luck with the searches, investigators turned their attention to other methods. Surveillance footage, cell phone records, tips, and witness interviews became the primary tools in the investigation. At this point, authorities had concluded that Sherri had either been abducted by a stranger or walked away voluntarily.
Obviously, we mind you out. You're out. Mm-hmm. So then now we're at a crossroads. We're either a stranger
Or known person.
or she walked out.
Definitely no way.
Problem with both is we're investigating either one.
The FBI continued to explore the stranger abduction angle, while local authorities, guided by what they found on Sherri's phone records, began investigating the possibility of her having left on her own. From those phone records, investigators discovered that Sherri had been exchanging text messages with a man from Michigan named Donovan Misk. The communications spanned several months and continued until the day before she went missing. Donovan was called in for questioning. He cooperated fully, sharing that he and Sherri had met at a restaurant that he previously owned in Lansing, Michigan. There, they both expressed a romantic interest in each other about 5 years prior to the disappearance. Sherri told him that she was married, but once again made the now common false claim that her husband was abusive, claiming he was violent and didn't allow her to leave the house. Donovan claimed that even back then, he didn't buy it. Nevertheless, the two of them hung out for the evening, going to a couple of bars before Sherri headed out the next day. The pair checked in on each other occasionally over the years. Then a few months before the disappearance, they actively began trying to coordinate meeting in person, right up until the day before she disappeared. Authorities found no evidence that Donovan and Sherri actually met in person around that time, and Donovan was ruled out as a suspect. Sherri, exchanging flirtatious and romantic messages with another man behind his back, was a pattern that Keith knew all too well. Shaken by the revelations, Keith now faced the very real possibility that Sherri's disappearance may not have been what it seemed. One of the investigators explored whether Sherri, fully aware of the overwhelming and perhaps unexpected attention her disappearance had drawn, may have been caught off guard by how out of control everything had become. Despite the disturbing discovery of the text messages, Keith continued to publicly plead for his wife's return. Then, 22 days into her disappearance at 4:22 a.m. on Thanksgiving morning, a call was placed to 911.
911 emergency, what are you reporting?
Hi, I have an emergency. I don't know my location. There's a lady on the side of the road needing help.
Okay. Are you traveling? Are you driving? Okay, sir, take a deep breath. What highway were you traveling on?
Okay. It's exit 140.
Do you know what highway you were on?
Oh, crap.
That's okay. Give me a second. Let's try this. Hold on just a second, because we've gotten some other calls. I'm just going to see if it's one and the same, okay? So were you on the Highway 5?
Yes, I'm on Highway 5.
Okay, so you're northbound 5. Do you know about what exit you've passed?
There's an exit. There's a southbound. Oh, crap.
That's okay. Do you know about what city you're in?
No.
Okay.
Please stay there. Please stay there, okay? Please stay there.
Listen what I'm saying. I want you to take all precautions for your safety. I have an officer en route to the Highway 113 that's connecting to the northbound 5, because we've had reports of a female trying to flag people down. Does that sound about the same?
Yeah, it's right outside of Yellow.
Okay. What's wrong with the
Section
female? Do we
532.
know?
She's saying that she got kicked out of her boyfriend's.
Okay, just be safe where
Okay.
you are. What is she asking for?
She's asking for an ambulance.
What's wrong with her? Ask her what's wrong with her.
What's hurting? You're chained up.
She's chained up?
She's chained up. Her vision's blurry, and she needs an ambulance.
Do you see her chained up?
Yes. Her name is Sherri Papini.
Ask her who chained her. Or can she talk at all?
Yeah. Here.
Can I talk to her?
Here.
Please.
Sherri, I need you to listen to me. Listen to me. Do you know where you are?
No. I've been in the car. Yes,
Okay,
sorry.
sweetie, listen to me. I need you to take a deep breath, calm down, and listen to what I'm saying. I have an officer en route. We've had several calls. Are you chained up?
Yes.
Okay, take a deep breath, sweetie. Who chained you up? Do you know the person, or were you kidnapped?
I don't know. I never saw her face.
Listen to what I'm asking. Listen to what I'm asking. Sherri, take a deep breath, because it's hard to help you if I can't understand you. Okay? I know you're upset, but we have help on the way, sweetie. We have help on the way. Listen to me. Deep breath, Sherri. Deep breath. How did you get chained up? What happened?
She took me.
Who took you? Do you know?
No.
Okay.
No, there was two of them.
Okay, listen. I have help on the way.
I want to call my husband. I want to call my husband.
Okay, listen. Take a deep breath. Where were you taken from?
From Reading. From Reading.
You were taken from Reading?
Reading. I live in Reading.
Okay, how did someone take you? Okay, Sherri, we will get help with you and we will get your husband, but right now I need you to help me help you. Help me help you, okay? Deep breath.
I can't see very well.
I understand, but I can't help you unless I can understand you. I need to tell the officer what's going on. Do you know any...
I don't know.
What do you mean you don't know? Do you know how someone took you? How did they get you out from Reading?
I want to call my husband.
Ma'am, right now I need you to get me information so I can help you. We will get in touch with your husband as well. But
I need an ambulance.
Okay,
Please.
I have officers and I have ambulance on the way. Right now I need you to talk to me.
I want to call my husband. I want to call my husband.
What happened?
Sherri Papini was found by a passing driver along Interstate 5 in Yolo County, 150 miles from her home. Weighing only 87 pounds, she was emaciated, disheveled, and covered in bruises and injuries. She had a chain around her waist, her hair had been chopped off, she had branding marks on her back, and she looked frail and scared. She was taken to the hospital. Keith was notified and rushed to be by her side. When he entered the hospital room where Sherri was being treated, Keith recalled that the moment when their eyes met, his instant impression was that she was lying. But as he got closer, as he saw the horrifying extent of her injuries, the multicolored bruises at various stages of healing covering every part of her body, the burns, the rashes, an actual whole burn into her arm, a fractured nose, her ribs protruding, and as he felt the scabs that now covered where she had been branded, all doubts disappeared. They were replaced by guilt of having even considered that she might have made it all up. At the hospital, Sherri refused to speak with investigators and insisted she would only talk to Keith. She told Keith that two Hispanic women, who only spoke Spanish to each other and basic English to her, had kidnapped her and held her in a small room. She described one of the women as younger with thin eyebrows and pierced ears, and the other as older with thick eyebrows and straight black hair. But extracting information from Sherri so soon was proving to be a challenge. While she was willing to talk somewhat since Keith was in the room, she was still reluctant and understandably very emotional. Investigators would pick up their interviews with her 4 days later, hoping for more details. They would meet Sherri and Keith at the home of one of their friends. There, Sherri explained that the day of her disappearance had started like any other. She started by dropping the kids off at daycare, then doing some cleaning. Then she recalled that she texted Keith to see if he could come home for lunch for a nooner.
Yeah. Text message my husband to come home for lunch. Which, looking back, is quite embarrassing. It's like, thanks for, that last text message. Penny, will you please come home and have sex with your wife? Right.
When that was a no-go, Sherri said she decided to go for a run. She said that while she was out running, she was abducted and transported in a dark SUV to where she was held captive, tortured, and beaten. She described being blindfolded for most of the time, though she could vaguely see her surroundings through gaps in her blindfold. According to Sherri, her captors chained her in a closet, using a chain bolted to a pole inside the closet. She described the closet as cold with a mattress on the floor and a bucket for a bathroom. She also claimed her captors made her wear an adult diaper. She went on to describe how her captors frequently played what she referred to as that loud, annoying Mexican music. She said she was fed minimal food such as cream of wheat, tortillas, scraps, and crackers, sometimes only once a day. She described overhearing her captors talk about potential buyers and threatened to sell her into human trafficking. She claimed her hair was cut off to alter her appearance, and that her captors branded her shoulder with a Bible verse to appeal to a potential buyer. At one point, she claimed she overheard her captors say, "She's too much trouble. We should just get rid of her." Sherri recounted her desperate attempts to bite through zip ties and loosen bolts to try to escape. Her story of how she was eventually released changed over time. Initially, she claimed her captors drove her to a roadside and pushed her out of the vehicle. But later, she said she escaped during an argument between her captors. Investigators spent hours questioning Sherri about every minute detail of her abduction and captivity, a level of scrutiny about her accounts that she had never faced previously. She often struggled to provide the level of detail they demanded, frequently breaking into tears and insisting it was too painful or difficult to recall. Once local authorities obtained the full account from Sherri, the FBI worked with her to create sketches of her alleged captors. The sketches, depicting only the masked women from the eyes up, were released to the public. But the vague drawings could have matched any multitude of Latino women in the community, fueling harmful racist stereotypes during an already tense and race-charged political climate. Meanwhile, the road ahead for the Papini family was rough. Sherri's trauma impacted every aspect of their lives. She wouldn't sleep with the lights off, needing it to look like full-on daytime while they slept. She panicked at small noises like a door quietly closing, and she refused to eat black beans, claiming they were what her captors fed her. She only trusted food prepared by Keith or her sister, and insisted on watching them cook it, fearing that it might be drugged. Keith took drastic measures to make her feel safe. He installed security cameras and a security gate, and covered the windows with blankets. Despite his efforts, Sherri remained on edge, and Keith lived in constant fear that her alleged kidnappers would return to harm their family or take their children. During therapy, Sherri would curl up and start screaming, and her nightmares were loud and frequent. She hated anything associated with Latino culture, even avoiding people with dark curly hair. Everyday sounds and movements like the clicking of a locked door sent her into a frenzy. To help Sherri cope and to also help identify and capture her assailants, Keith worked tirelessly with her to piece together details of the room where she was held. She described a closet with remarkable specificity, noting an unusual metal rod that dissected the top shelves, an odd and memorable configuration. She also described how the windows were boarded up and gave him intricate details about the table she laid on when she was being branded. Keith made it his personal mission to recreate every aspect of her captivity. He sketched layouts of the room based on her descriptions, paying careful attention to the distinctive closet she described. He even combed through countless images of tables, presenting them to Sherri one by one until they finally landed on one that she confirmed was a match. At one point, Sherri invited friends over to share their account of the moment they learned she was alive. It was an emotional evening, and while her guests were moved, Keith found the whole encounter awkward, noticing how much Sherri seemed to revel in the attention. While Sherri's friends and family continued to support her, the community around her was divided. Given the widespread attention her disappearance had generated, the media eagerly covered her return, often portraying her as a resilient victim who had endured an unimaginable ordeal, but also raising questions and expressing skepticism. Online forums and social media platforms buzzed with speculation, pointing out inconsistencies in her account. Questions about the lack of arrests or leads in the case began to surface, sowing seeds of doubt. For some, Sherri's description of her 2 alleged Hispanic captors raised eyebrows. Hispanic advocacy groups expressed outrage, calling her account harmful and a perpetuation of stereotypes. Authorities tried their best to ignore public sentiment. They focused on uncovering what happened to Sherri and identifying who was responsible. Behind the scenes, Sherri's inconsistent account of the events, implausible details about her captors, and questionable injuries, some of which medical examination revealed to be self-inflicted, raised serious doubt about her story. But authorities didn't have any concrete evidence to dispute her claims. That was until August of 2020. 4 years after Sherri's disappearance, the FBI calls Keith and Sherri in for a meeting. Keith considers it a promising request since it's the FBI. He's optimistic they may finally have news about Sherri's abductors. And boy, do they. Agents open the meeting by welcoming them back, but then quickly remind them what's at stake.
But some stuff's come up, so we've always had the DNA out there in the world.
Sorry, Tom, before we get too far, obviously, just like always, thank you for coming. We appreciate you taking the time to come talk to us.
Yeah.
As always, your presence here is voluntary.
Yeah.
You can go at any time, and all we want is truthful statements because it's a crime to lie to federal officers.
Wow, yeah. No, that's good.
Understood?
Yeah.
Sorry, forget about that part. So there's always been DNA out there, and we've done testing after testing. We've gone out to like the Parabon, which is a private company who does all like the genetics, and we've just hit wall after wall after wall. But recently, we found a familia DNA hit. So what that does, it just tells us it came from a certain person. So like the mother or the father or a son or an uncle or however that is, it just hits that, like somewhere in this family tree is where the DNA comes from.
Okay.
So with that, we open up the investigation. We go into who could it be within the family. So once we started opening up those doors and looking through the family members and just trying to see Facebook stalking them, criminal histories, just that normal investigation that we do once we start looking into things, we started finding some interesting things.
Okay.
So one of the things that came out to us, is there anything in there that looks
Of interest or notable?
So the picture's a little grained out. So
to me, I see a table there that somewhat looks like something you described to me in the past, and then I see wood paneling. Talking about the room.
Although it was only in a small part of the photo, Keith, and likely Sherri as well, recognized the corner of the table as being similar to the one Sherri described laying on while she was being branded. Keith appeared excited. Sherri, not so much.
Yeah, we noted both of those things back in August of 2017. Is when we spoke with you about, and you showed us this picture of the table. Do you remember that, Sherri?
Yes, I do.
And so when we were trolling through this, Facebook page, we saw just the edge of that table.
Yeah.
Denise got it, in fact.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
Denise said, "Hey, Peter."
I mean, points for enthusiasm.
"Hey, Peter, look at this table." And I was like, "Oh wait, you're right."
Yeah.
And it has the wood paneling. So we're like, well, where was that photo taken, right? And so we're trying to figure that out.
So,
okay.
So that's led us obviously now to obviously this Facebook page has a person. It's got like people tagged into it, so it has, so Peter has a.
But that's still a valid memory, right? Is that this was the table?
Yeah.
A table like this was the table you were on when you were branded?
And we've been talking about that a lot because so many memories are so faded now.
It's been a long time.
It's been a really long time. So, like, details and things like that, we did the best that we could to take notes on it and all of that, but a lot of it's really hard.
Sure.
It's hard to think about.
Agents explain that a familial DNA match led them to several family members' social media profiles, including the person that posted the photo. They showed Sherri photos of some of the other potential family members who were considered, but that was just for show. Because in reality, they knew exactly who the familial match was, and exactly where he, not two Hispanic females, was located. The DNA they were testing was found on the sweatpants and underwear Sherri was wearing when she reappeared in 2016. At the time, they did not have a match. But investigators finally got a break with a familial match to a man whose profile pointed them to his son. Authorities zeroed in on the son as the source of the DNA. They then confirmed the match after retrieving a discarded bottle from his trash. 3 days prior to their sit-down with the Papinis, investigators had visited the son, whose name was James Reyes. James lived in Costa Mesa, over 500 miles south of Redding, and was Sherri's ex-boyfriend. The table from the photo the agents presented to the Papinis was located in his home. For the first hour of their visit with James, he insisted that he had not seen Sherri in over 10 years. But detectives knew otherwise. At one point, James's pet parakeet escaped. One of the detectives went out with James to help retrieve it, while the other was given permission by James to look inside the home. When the agent and James returned, the agent inside the home let the other one know that it was definitely the home where Sherri had been kept, having seen that the bedroom matched Sherri's description to a T. Agents continued to press James, letting him know that his DNA was found on her clothes and that they had details about both his calls with her and his whereabouts relative to the disappearance, and that they all pointed to Sherri being at his home. After nearly an hour, James finally comes clean, claiming he was just helping a friend who said she was in an abusive relationship. He proceeded to provide the full details about Sherri's time there, the majority of which were details that had not been disclosed to the public.
So, like I said, with the familial DNA, obviously we saw that first picture that has the wood paneling, and it's got the table, right? So that's ultimately what led us to those pictures, which then snowballed us down the road that we're eventually at and where we are.
So were you able to find like where that house is?
Yes.
And what? Tell me more. Tell me more. Tell me more.
We'll get to that.
Okay.
That's where I was going next.
Maybe the top one or two.
Agents show them a picture of the closet from the room in James's home.
So if you look at this closet,
Keith is blown away. He marvels that it's identical to the drawing he made that he happened to have stumbled across the day before when he was cleaning papers.
Obviously, there's stuff in there now.
I'm not looking at the stuff.
I literally was cleaning papers out yesterday and found that drawing that you did. I haven't even looked at the picture yet, but I've seen it out already. Can I look at it?
do you remember this drawing?
Yes. I just found the original one of that and I was trying to explain.
It's a little bit different, but it's pretty, excuse my language, it's pretty fucking similar. But it's different.
What's different or what's the same?
It's hard, there's a lot of shit in the photos, but.
Well, let's focus on those two because there's less color.
Oh.
It's like a piece of plywood almost.
It didn't look like that.
Yeah, it looks blown up, so it makes it look like it's that thick, but it's about like 3/4 inch somewhere.
It's probably like half inch. It's
Half
also
inch.
so.
Okay, yeah, this looks big in the picture.
Yeah, it didn't look like that.
Okay, but similar. Besides the metal part, anything else similar?
I mean, the metal part?
What about one shelf versus two shelves?
Oh. I think there was 2 shelves, but now I'm having trouble remembering. I think there was 2. I'm pretty sure there was 2. Maybe there was 2? I don't know. I'm focusing on this part right now. Sorry.
Sure.
They show Sherri more photos, but each of them isn't quite right, and she starts to get overwhelmed. So the agents get to the heart of why they're there.
Because ultimately, this is the house that you were at. We talked to the people who live there. Sorry. We found the house. We found who was involved. We talked to who was involved. We talked to family who knows that you were there, and talked to a couple people talked to one guy who did see you during this event. Unfortunately, there's a lot of truths. There's a lot of things that were said that we have always confirmed. That we've always said. There's a lot of truths, and then there's some unknowns. Like one of the simple ones, like, well, this description of the bathroom is just weird. Like that was like an argument in all of our offices where we were sitting there like this part's weird. But then we find a house with it. Then the all thread through the thing, that's just weird.
It's unique to this place. Like that's a pretty custom. You can't just go out to IKEA and buy a closet that looks like this.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So once we have all those things and we start talking to the person who lives here, who had lived there, who still lives there, start talking to his family and starting that whole investigation, peeling one thing back after another, doing the same thing we've done for the last 4 years. It led us to a specific person, but not a female. It led us to the car that picked you up, but not an SUV. So there's lots of different aspects that are truths and falses. And we're to the point now that nobody would have ever imagined that this would have blown up the way that it did. So I've been a cop 15 years. I've never seen the media scale that this garnered pretty quickly. How long have you been in law enforcement now?
12 years in the Bureau.
So, like, of the minds, Brian, who's been around 20 plus years, people who've been in my office like 25, 30 plus years, the media attention that this got out was insane. So I think with that being said, some choices and some decisions ultimately changed the original path of what happened. I don't think anybody would have wished the media frenzy that occurred, like for this event, no matter what the situation, if it was a kid, because the media skewed so many facts. It brought so many people in from the woodwork that if we didn't have the woodwork, we wouldn't have the noise.
And that brings a lot of pressure when you get that kind of scrutiny.
So we'd like to talk to you more about those things, and we can do it with Keith here, or we can ask Keith to leave. It's whatever you're comfortable with, so we can break down some of the problems. If you want Keith here, all we want is to have the truth. All we want is to be able to tell the truth. That's all we've ever wanted from day one. We talked with you for hours. We've been there. We've done all these different things, waiting for something, waiting for it to break, waiting for us to leak something to hear. Because the DNA came back, like I said, to a specific person. That specific person told us very specific things. His family then told us specific things. So if we can talk with Keith or without Keith here, what would you like?
Sherri knows she's cooked and is probably hoping Keith will voluntarily excuse himself. But Keith has waited 4 years for this moment. Stepping out is likely the last thing on his mind.
Do you want to step out or do you want to stay?
Obviously, I want to stay.
Or we can do a little bit of both. Talk to you alone first and then have him come back in.
It's completely up to you. And that's why I'm not even looking at Keith. I don't care about your opinion, Keith. What we want out of this is the truth.
Sherri will not give a definitive answer either way. Agents step out to allow the couple to talk alone. And recorded.
You need to stop what you're doing and tell me the truth. I don't want you to Yeah, whatever you're doing, it doesn't mean stuff to me.
I don't give a shit about that. I don't want them to find her. I don't want them to find her. I don't want her to be arrested. I don't want to press charges on her. I don't want to find her.
Explain to me right now.
I don't know. I don't want them to find her. You're not listening to
Tell
me.
me why.
Because she saved my life.
But tell me, honey, there's obviously something going on. There's obviously something going on. This is going to be really bad if you don't tell me.
Look at how you're being right now. I am fucking with you.
No, I'm not
being right now. I don't want them to find her. I don't want to press charges, and I don't want to go down that road.
But you tell her?
I don't want to go down that road. I don't want to arrest her because she saved my life, and she's the reason why I get to hold my children every single day.
In this, I don't want to get in trouble for lying to the police.
I don't want them to fucking find her.
What did you lie on?
I don't want them to arrest her.
Why?
Because she saved my life.
So you don't press charges. They still need to find out who it is. Tell them the truth. Everyone the truth. If you don't want to press charges, then that's up to you. You're not making sense now. To the point where I'm getting scared now. So you need to tell me what's going on. Immediately. Yeah.
Hearing the spare the nice kidnapper path Sherri is going down, the agents return to interrupt the conversation.
This is the last time if you want to do this alone or with Keith. Keith's been through this also on a different level. So I'm ready I'm ready to move on and throw the dart and throw the rock and see what happens to the water. But Sherri, look at me. What do you want?
I don't want her to get in trouble.
She's not going to get in trouble. So the DNA came back to James Reyes.
The DNA that was on you belongs to James Reyes.
The picture, and can I get the picture? The picture of the table is James Reyes' little brother who died recently. We talked to him. He's been on a polygraph. We talked to everybody around him. We have the rental agreements, phone rental, the car rental agreements. We have everything that says that he said he told the truth.
That's James' brother, deceased Nick.
So everything, you've told us so many truths in this situation. The reason why you can describe the room is because you stayed in the room in the dark for hours, for days on end. The reason why you lost so much weight is because you stopped eating. The reason why you got a rash on your arm was because you cleaned his house. The reason why the brand is because he went to the store, bought the branding tools, and branded you. The reason why your nose was broke is because of a hockey stick. I know all of those things, and I know there was no sex. I know all of that because he passed a polygraph test that said it's not an abduction. She asked me to come get her.
No.
I rented a car.
No.
I drove up and picked her up. He passed the polygraph test, Sherri.
If that's not what happened, what did happen, Sherri?
I don't know. No, there's no way. It's James. There's no way. There's no way.
The DNA doesn't lie.
His DNA
was on you.
There's no way.
Robert saw you in the house while you were down there. While everything spun out of control. His cousin. Why everything ran out of control on the initial.
There's no way.
It's 100% Robert's or James's DNA.
We even collected blonde hairs from the room.
There's no way it's James. There's no
worried that it is.
Why are you saying it's not James? Why are you saying it's not?
That's me.
What's up?
We were friends.
Mhm.
There's no way.
And he came and got you because you asked him.
No.
When was the last time you had contact with James?
His brother died.
Brother died in 2017? Is that right?
I don't remember.
Was it before or after the abduction?
Before.
Before.
When was the last time you saw James?
I don't know. Forever ago when I lived in Southern California.
So the last person-to-person contact you had with him was back in 2006? When you were living in Southern California?
I don't know.
So,
was it prior to your marriage?
It's him. There is no way it's him.
well, it is James.
The DNA tells us that it was his DNA on you.
The DNA alone says it's him. And when we talked to him, confronted him with the DNA,
He told us what happened.
He 100% told us what happened.
He gave us details that nobody else would know.
And we can call him and we can all talk about it. But ultimately, can you look at me for a second? Ultimately, we put him on a polygraph like we did Keith. Keith was inconclusive, to be honest with you, on whether he was involved or not. But 100% James was showing the truth. The questions were, did Sherri ask you to come pick her up? He answered yes. That was the truth on a polygraph. We asked him if the two of you ever had sex. The answer was no.
During 2016?
During 2016, during the abduction. He said no. That was the truth. We asked him if you asked him to brand you. The answer was yes. And he passed the polygraph on all of those questions. He took us to the stores where he bought the chain. We talked to the friend who rented the car. The car that he rented drove over 900 miles in a day on the drop-off point.
Sherri, I know this is a lot to take in. But it's not like we don't know the answers to these questions.
And the fear of Keith's reaction, obviously now he's in the room, the fear of media, the fear of all of these things are coming forward. They're in front of you now. The only way to get a hold of it, the only way for everybody to come together and heal, the whole community has to heal, is for us to be able to say, when we presented all of the evidence, all of the stuff that came forward, you told us the truth. You told us what happened.
That wasn't happening. Sherri was backed into a corner and everything was unraveling. But that just meant she needed to think even faster.
So,
what are you thinking, Sherri?
That doesn't make any sense.
Why doesn't it make sense?
what actions doesn't make sense?
A lot of it doesn't make sense.
Can we talk about those?
Detectives bring up the indisputable DNA.
James' DNA was confirmed on your clothing. The two of you haven't seen each other in over a decade. If you told me that you haven't been in his room, you haven't had contact with him in over 10 years. However,
you described his bedroom to a T.
And the DNA on you was still a vibrant piece of DNA. 10-year-old DNA dies. The DNA that was there specifically was non-seminal fluid, was seminal fractions. You got that from his house somewhere. So whether it was the bed that you were sleeping on, whether it was the couch, whether it was anywhere in there. I can't believe James told us the truth. That's what I can't believe. He passed a polygraph, Sherri.
So did Keith.
No, he didn't. He was inconclusive. And he was involved.
So James is involved. But I don't...
James picked you up. You called James to pick you up. You mailed him a letter with your address. You used a burner phone to call another burner phone for James to come and get you.
You're saying since you're married, you haven't called James?
No, I have called James.
Because earlier you said you had contacted James. Because phone records show that you do. You did. The phones don't lie, the DNA doesn't lie, Sherri.
His polygraph doesn't lie.
So you can go a couple different directions now.
His story.
I've already told you lying to me is a crime. So you walk out the store telling lies, and that's a crime.
I think we need my lawyer. This isn't making any sense.
The agent breaks down what actually happened.
You told us the truth. You told us what happened. Because you did go in a dark room. That's true. You did lay in the back seat of the car. That's true. You did lose weight. You were branded. Your hair was cut. You did have bruises all over. But how those bruises got there are because you did it and James did some. The reason why your nose got broke is because you held the hockey stick to your face and he forced it into your nose. The reason why the brand is in a straight line is because he did it. He described exactly where it was. He told us exactly how he did it, where he did it, how he did it. Only you and I and maybe 5 other people know where the brand was. He told me immediately.
Keith eventually leaves the room, and detectives encourage Sherri to tell the truth.
James said he's the nicest person in the whole world. Yeah, he may be a hockey player, but he is the nicest person in the world. He's nice to a fault. I know lots of people. I don't know anybody I'd rent a car for and drive 9 hours for. Keith, James did that for you.
He never put reward money on the line.
He never asked for anything. He didn't ask for sexual relations. He didn't ask for a relationship after you.
And yet he stayed quiet until now.
And the only reason why he talked is because we have his DNA. That's the only reason why we got to his door. That's the only thing that led us to his closet. That's the only thing that led us to the bathroom. That's goofy. And that's the only reason why he started talking to us.
They continue to try coaxing a confession out of her, but the most they get is a half-hearted admission about flirting.
It's my fault that I was fucking doing this. It's my fault that I was flirting with other men. It was such a stupid thing to do. I love my husband.
Flirting with
I love my children.
That's understandable.
It's just stupid.
Here's the deal though, Sherri. Flirting with other men, not a crime. Lying to me today, yes, a crime.
Eventually, Sherri says she wants an attorney, so agents wrap it up.
If you want to keep talking to us, that's a separate story, but you said you wanted to talk to your attorney, so like I said, from the beginning, you're free to go and you can go. I would ask you one more question, just for your own welfare. Do you feel like harming yourself?
Welfare.
Do you feel like harming yourself?
No, I just want to hug my children and go home.
Okay. Well, you're free to go and do that. If you change your mind and want to come forward and talk to us.
This is all my fault because I talked to other men. This cannot be.
You might have come and served the doctor to you.
Keith and the detectives return.
I'm the idiot husband that stayed around the whole time.
No, there's not. It's still, we can't tell you a lot, honestly.
Keith wants to be brought up to speed, but agents cannot share anything that was said while he was out of the room.
Right? Or is she trying to come up with a whole nother?
We're not going to give you any additional details. Obviously, you've heard the questions, so you can read through some of those and understand. You've seen some of the photos.
Yeah.
So you know some of the investigative work
obviously
we've
you saw
done.
me, I was like, yeah, we found him.
And we did.
Yeah.
But you can also notice your reaction compared to her reaction.
Yeah. No, 100%.
Agents have been acutely aware of the stark contrast between the couple's reactions to each piece of evidence. Keith inquires about his options for removing her from his home.
Do you think I want her anywhere around my kids or around me at all at this point?
And again, we've talked a lot. I don't know what the next stages of this are. That's why
it's not
that's
us
why
together, right? That one.
Whatever those decisions are, I don't know.
But from we can all agree that she's not over there, then obviously if somebody can do something like that to her body and
try to trick everybody that they're probably not fit to.
It was 4 years ago.
If I don't want her in my house tonight, what options do I have?
You'd have to get restraining orders. You'd have to get the legal stuff.
After Keith leaves the room and joins up with Sherri, she tells him that maybe James was involved, but he wasn't there. Unwilling to listen at that point, Keith tells her she can't stay at the house. Sherri would stay at Keith's aunt's house that night, and Keith would have nothing to do with her for days. Until he decided to seek advice from a trusted father figure. The father figure pointed out that it was James's word against Sherri's. Keith reasoned that, as a husband, he shouldn't believe the word of James, someone who has a vested interest in denying any wrongdoing, over the word of his own wife, at least not until he had definitive proof otherwise. So, after Sherri insisting that she wasn't aware of James being involved, that the authorities were pitting them against each other, and pleading with him to communicate with her, Keith took her back. Despite giving Sherri the benefit of the doubt, Keith still anticipated her being arrested or at least formally charged, given the recent meeting with agents. Indeed, by that point, authorities knew exactly what had transpired. Namely, authorities learned that Sherri had been talking to her ex-boyfriend, James Reyes, as far back as 2015. Triggered by James finding old mementos from their past and sending them to Sherri's father, Sherri reached out and reconnected with James. She told him how she was trapped in an abusive relationship with her husband and needed to get out. She claimed police were ignoring the reports she had supposedly filed against him. In the months leading up to her disappearance, Sherri called James and asked him to help her escape, telling him she had a plan. Shortly before her disappearance, she mailed James a care package with instructions on how to pick her up, and the pair used burner phones to coordinate every step. Once the plan was ready, James rented a car and drove to Reading. Surveillance footage and phone records confirmed his movements. At their agreed-upon location, Sherri got into the back seat of the car and laid down for the 8-hour drive back to his apartment in Costa Mesa. James admitted to investigators that he thought their relationship would become romantic once Sherri arrived, but it never did. She spent most of her days locked away in his bedroom that she had taken over, while he was forced to sleep on the couch. At James's home, Sherri began inflicting injuries to support her story. She told James exactly what to do to make the wounds look real. A former hockey player, James followed her instructions. He shot hockey pucks at her legs and used a hockey stick to help break her nose. James also used a wood-burning tool to brand Sherri, but most of the injuries were self-inflicted while James was at work. Sherri starved herself, eating only small portions, and became visibly emaciated. Despite the bizarre and extreme nature of her requests, James believed he was just helping a friend. Then, as Thanksgiving Day approached, Sherri told James that she was ready to go home. Although James was disappointed, hoping for a deeper relationship, he agreed to help. On Thanksgiving morning, he drove her back in the middle of the night to a location she had chosen. Sherri jumped out of the car and started running to stage her escape, without so much as even a goodbye to James. She had not spoken with him since. James told investigators that he had no idea about the media storm surrounding Sherri's disappearance because he didn't have a TV. He only realized the scale of the situation when he saw news coverage after Sherri's return. Panicked, he stayed quiet, believing the police would contact him if he had done anything wrong. James was not charged with any crime, with authorities fully confident that he was duped. After Sherri's return, financial records revealed that she financially benefited from the hoax, including receiving over $30,000 in victim compensation funds. And investigators quickly began uncovering contradictions in her story. Her claim of being chained in a closet didn't match forensic evidence, her injuries didn't fit the timeline she provided, and her story about escaping didn't align with physical evidence. And of course, there was the DNA. The male DNA found on Sherri's underwear and sweatpants proved to be the smoking gun. It was the single most important piece of evidence in the case. It revealed that the perpetrators were not two women, but one male. It led investigators to James Reyes and straight to the location that Sherri had described in graphic detail. As information continued to unfold, more evidence of Sherri's history of lying for attention and making false claims of victimhood surfaced. Keith told his therapist that sometimes he felt like Sherri wasn't telling the truth. The therapist responded by asking him about the injuries to her body. All the injuries, all the scars. Do you really think she could fake that? Keith thought for a long moment before admitting, Yeah, I can actually kind of see her doing that. Why? Keith recalled that Sherri had previously fabricated a story about her ex-boyfriend stabbing her in 2 places on her back, leaving scars that he had observed. However, Sherri had forgotten that she had told her best friend Jennifer years earlier that they were the result of her father accidentally cutting her with an X-Acto knife. In the end, neither story was true. Sherri later admitted to Jennifer that the wounds were self-inflicted. Investigators had also spoken with Sherri's first husband. He revealed that after they divorced, he was told by mutual friends that she had a history of lying. He also shared that contrary to her needing his medical benefits for a heart condition like she had told Keith, she had told him that she needed it due to complications for having donated eggs regularly in the past. As investigators dug deeper, they uncovered a racially charged blog post from 2003 when Sherri would still have been in high school. It was written under Sherri's maiden name, Sherri Greff. The photo on the post was clearly a photo of Sherri. The post, which had gained widespread attention in 2016 after Sherri reappeared, was one of the factors that fueled the public's skepticism about Sherri's credibility. And by association, Keith's leanings were also called into question. During one of the interviews with Keith and Sherri, detectives raised concerns about the post before eventually asking Sherri if she wrote it.
The blog that has surfaced from a while back about the Hispanics and some thoughts or comments that people are spinning up. Can we clarify some of that stuff?
Yes, and it's awful because there's so much that my family is going through, and I'm sure you guys know everything, and I understand why you have to know everything, but my life wasn't perfect before this. It's just an awful feeling that all of everything and the made up things, it's just a disgusting, yucky feeling of what it's doing to my family.
Well, these are things that will, until we can put them to bed, until we can resolve them, that regardless of how long this case goes, we get people in custody, it's gonna resurface. And so the best way to deal with it is to deal with it on the front end, officially. So that way we can put it to bed. Obviously, people are drawing the conclusions that you're reporting to Hispanics did this. You wrote some, I'm assuming, did you write the blog?
No.
The agent asked them both if they knew about the post.
Prior to all this stuff, have you guys ever seen that blog before? Or ever heard of it? You just what I'm referring to, right? The one about the...
Notice that after they looked at each other, Sherri shook her head no, while Keith simultaneously said yes. Hearing Keith's yes, Sherri quickly switched from shaking her head no to nodding it yes. Keith told detectives that when he first saw the post about a year after they'd been married, Sherri insisted that she did not write it.
How did the blog get written or posted under your name? Or do you have any idea?
No, I have no idea.
Sherri claimed someone wrote the post as a way of ruining her reputation. But detectives and the public found it unlikely that someone would write such a long, elaborate article as a hoax, particularly on a website that wasn't visited by anyone they knew, a seemingly ineffective way of ruining someone's reputation. The post contained anti-Latino sentiments and skinhead ideologies and was published on a neo-Nazi skinhead website. With parallels between the current case and the post's anti-Latino sentiment, investigators pressed Sherri for answers. Sherri claimed that she had tried to get a lawyer to remove the post. When investigators asked who the lawyer was, she told them she couldn't remember his name.
If you gave me like a list of lawyers in Reading, I might be able to pick his name out because it seems like it was ethnic to me.
While several details in the post did not align with Sherri's life, such as claims that her parents own a pizza restaurant and that she had been arrested. Given her history of fabricating stories and attention-grabbing, it was not at all beyond Sherri to fabricate such minor details. While investigators believe that Sherri did write the racially charged post, they didn't have any concrete proof. With such a high-profile, complex case, it would take another year and a half to build a strong enough case to ensure a conviction. 19 months after the FBI had called the couple in, and 6 years after the disappearance, Sherri Papini was arrested on March 3, 2022. The community and the nation were outraged. Those who were skeptical of Sherri's story felt vindicated, but nevertheless incensed by her lies. Those who believed her, supported her, even financially backed her, felt betrayed. Sherri's mental state was explored extensively. While some sympathized with the young mother, citing suspected but never confirmed mental health struggles, others remained skeptical. Sherri was charged with making false statements to an officer and mail fraud, a total of 35 felony counts. She was facing up to 25 years in prison. During a virtual preliminary hearing, her attorney expressed concerns about the quality of food in jail. He stated that Sherri had allergies that affected her ability to eat the food provided by the jail, hoping to get her release as a result. The judge ordered that she remain in custody until her next court date. After being arrested, Sherri adamantly denied any wrongdoing, sticking to her story of being abducted. She portrayed herself as the ultimate victim, even as investigators dismantled her claims, piece by piece. But as the evidence against her mounted, Sherri found herself backed into a corner. Facing overwhelming proof of her deception, she ultimately chose to take a plea deal, admitting to fabricating the elaborate kidnapping hoax that had affected so many people's lives. As part of the agreement, Sherri pleaded guilty to 1 count of mail fraud and 1 count of making false statements. 33 additional counts of mail fraud were dropped as part of the plea deal. In a statement Sherri released to her attorney, she expressed remorse, saying, "I am deeply ashamed of myself for my behavior, and so sorry for the pain I've caused my family, my friends, all the good people who needlessly suffered because of my story, and those who worked so hard to try to help me. I will work the rest of my life to make amends for what I have done." Sherri Papini pleaded guilty to the 2 counts agreed upon. The judge in the case emphasized the need for a significant sentence to deter similar hoaxes. Sherri's lawyers argued that she was suffering from unresolved trauma and mental health struggles and requested leniency for her sentencing. In September 2022, Sherri Papini was sentenced to 18 months in prison, followed by 36 months of supervised release. She was additionally ordered to pay approximately $309,000 in restitution to various agencies. The true cost of Sherri Papini's hoax went far beyond the restitution she was ordered to pay. In a time when serious human trafficking cases with legitimate victims required urgent attention, Sherri's hoax wasted critical law enforcement resources, which could have been used to find actual missing persons. For example, shortly before Sherri went missing, Stacy Smart from nearby Trinity County disappeared, but received minimal media attention and hardly any support or resources for her family. After her arrest, Sherri faced harsh criticism from Shasta County officers who had spent years investigating her false claims. They condemned her for the panic and mistrust her actions had caused, including residents being afraid to go running for weeks. Hispanic advocacy groups condemned her depiction of her kidnappers as racist and a slap in the face to their community. The fabricated story perpetuated harmful stereotypes and caused heightened racial tension targeted at the Hispanic community. Social media erupted with criticism. Donors demanded refunds, and the community that had rallied behind her felt deeply betrayed. Her case also faced criticism for the instant and widespread attention it received, with many believing the coverage and resources were disproportionately allocated because of how Sherri looked. Media coverage frequently referenced her blonde hair, blue eyes, and attractiveness, often presenting them in ways that implied her case was especially deserving of attention, and later framing those same features as inconsistent with any wrongdoing or deception. Meanwhile, Stacy Smart, who seemingly didn't fit the media's image of a victim worthy of coverage, was barely a headline. The Papini case has been cited as an example of how biases can influence which stories gain traction and how those biases can have very real consequences. In April 2022, 2 days after Sherri pleaded guilty, Keith filed for divorce and asked for sole custody of the couple's children. Over the years, the former couple has appeared in court several times to resolve financial disputes, including one where Sherri tried to compel Keith to pay over $3,000 for a Best Buy credit card she had charged up. She was ultimately ordered to pay half herself. In May 2023, the couple's divorce was finalized. Keith was awarded the couple's home as well as the lion's share of their possessions. Since then, Sherri has been declared an unfit parent, and Keith has been granted full custody of their children, with Sherri having monthly supervised visits at a court building. At her 3rd supervised visit with her children, Sherri only saw their daughter because their son reportedly refused to attend. According to Keith, he doesn't speak to Sherri outside of court or mediation. In August 2023, Sherri Papini was released from federal prison to a halfway house. Her projected release date was set to be October 29, 2023, but she was released a little early due to good behavior. Sherri will remain on supervised release until 2026. By March 2024, Sherri had made little progress toward paying off her $309,000 restitution. As a result, federal prosecutors filed to garnish her wages or seize property to recover the money. Her attorney said that Sherri is committed to fulfilling her financial obligations. By the end of that year, November 2024, she had repaid only about $1,000 of the $148,000 she owed to the Shasta County Sheriff's Office, and her restitution didn't even include the $49,000 raised through the GoFundMe campaign set up to help find her. That campaign also drew controversy, with many contributors angered. The campaign was even included in a DOJ lawsuit, which outlined how the funds were used to pay off the couple's credit cards and pay for personal expenses. In September 2024, Sherri Papini's former mother-in-law, Kathleen Papini, sued Sherri for failing to pay back a $50,000 loan. Kathleen says she gave Sherri the loan in March of 2022 to help with Sherri's legal defense, not knowing at the time that her kidnapping claims were false. In January of 2024, according to notes that a court-appointed supervisor filed in court, Sherri told her daughter during a supervised visit that she is now an author. She said to her daughter, "Last time we were on the phone, you kept asking about my job. Do you have questions about it?" Her daughter replied, "Yeah, what do you do for work?" Sherri answered, "Well, like this place is very helpful for families. Well, Mommy is building a foundation to help places like this more. Mommy is making a business that will be a foundation to help people. Do you know what an author is?" Her 10-year-old daughter replied, "Yes. Mommy is an author now. She's writing 2 books. I work lots of hours to write chapter books. So when I tell you I'm working remotely, that means I'm at home writing chapters on my laptop." In June of 2024, the Daily Mail spotted and photographed Sherri in a Northern California parking lot with her reported new boyfriend, Sean Hibden, a widowed auto dealership owner and father of 2. After arriving in separate cars, the two joined each other inside Sherri's white Jeep, spending over an hour inside, before emerging and sharing a kiss. Like Sherri, Sean Hibden's past has also drawn attention, particularly regarding the death of his wife, Brittany, who passed away unexpectedly in September of 2021. Her death occurred 4 days after she reportedly expressed her intent to divorce Sean, and well after he is reported to have been introduced to Sherri. Her death has sparked extensive speculation on public forums like Reddit, while Sean and his family have consistently maintained that no foul play was involved. Pages like Justice for Brittany have called for further investigation. The couple is reported to have been dating as far back as May of 2022, which was before Sherri was sent to prison. The obvious question: how did Sherri manage to find someone willing to overlook her widely publicized reputation? They are reported to have been set up by Dr. Stephen Diggs and Suzanne Papini. If that name sounds familiar, sit back, there's more. Reports claim that Dr. Diggs was Sherri's therapist and is a strong Sherri supporter, as evidence from a July 2024 Facebook post he made that we will link in the description. According to reports, Suzanne Papini was Sean and Brittany's marriage counselor and Keith's sister. With both Suzanne and Dr. Diggs working for the same practice, Sherri not being legally divorced yet, and Sean and Brittany still undergoing marriage counseling with their practice, the counselors have come under fire with claims that their matchmaking violates their profession's code of ethics, blurring the line between personal and professional among several other issues. Suzanne is reported to have sided with Sherri and cut ties with her brother Keith. Court documents reveal that Sherri is currently living in the $750,000 Northern California home purchased by Sean. Her white Jeep also appears to look quite new. According to Keith, Sherri has never shown any remorse, nor has she apologized to him or her family for what she did. Once Sherri was sent to prison and Keith took over caring for the kids full-time, he says he discovered more of Sherri's troubling actions one day after he made a noise in front of his daughter as though he was sick. He said his daughter suggested inhaling rubbing alcohol, explaining that that's what their mommy would have them do when they were sick. She said Sherri had told them it would help them feel better. But in reality, she was doing it to make them sicker so she could take them to the hospital. Worried about the stigma his kids might face going through life with a name tied to so much controversy, Keith once had a light-hearted conversation with them about what name they might choose if they ever wanted to change their last name. As Keith tossed out suggestions, his son eventually asked if this was about their mom, when Keith replied, maybe. His son said he didn't think they should have to change their name because of what she did. While their mother's actions impacted the children and the family for years, Keith shared in 2024 that the children are thriving. No one may ever truly know what motivated Sherri Papini's elaborate hoax. Some theorize that she was playing out a real-life Gone Girl fantasy, with her hoax mimicking nearly the exact scenario played out in the movie. Authorities and many others speculate that Sherri left because her AT&T severance was about to run out, which meant her lifestyle was going to change, and she wasn't ready for that. And still others believe that given her history of victimhood and lying for attention, it was just her nature. In reality, it may have been all three. When Keith was asked why he thinks it all happened, he said he believed that Sherri took elements of Elizabeth Smart's abduction, Gone Girl, and even the Tara Smith disappearance, and pieced together her own abduction. But regarding her true motive, he says, "I've accepted that I will never know the truth. No one ever will." Sherri Papini's hoax wasn't just a betrayal of the public's trust. It was a betrayal of the people closest to her. Knowing full well the scrutiny her disappearance would bring, she let her husband face her very deliberate accusations of abuse, suspicion of murder, and the looming threat of losing his own freedom as a result. Then she returned home to lean on the person she had disparaged, abandoned, and set up for years. In the end, the scars Sherri left were not the ones she inflicted on herself. They were the ones she carved into the lives of everyone who believed in her. What do you think about Sherri and why she did what she did? Was her sentence appropriate for her crime? Please drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you liked our coverage of this case, please do us a favor by hitting like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell so you get notified about all our new videos.